August 12, 1943. Camp Stockton, California. The train hissed to a stop under the San Joaquin Valley sun. Metal screamed against metal. The sound echoed across flat farmland that stretched to the Sierra Nevada, a wall of purple mountains shimmering in afternoon heat that bent the air itself. Inside the last car, Conrad Hoffman gripped the wooden bench and steadied himself against the final lurch. 28 years old. Engineer. BMW Motorenwerk München before the war. Then North Africa when the Reich needed every man with a technical degree. Captured 3 weeks ago in Sicily when the Afrika Korps collapsed into dust and blood and the bitter mathematics of retreat. Hell, probably. He had prepared himself for hell. The door slid open. California sunlight stabbed through the opening, white and merciless. Conrad squinted. Raised one hand to shield his eyes. Stepped down onto gravel that crunched beneath boots he had worn since Kasserine Pass. The leather was cracked. The soles were thin. He could feel every stone through what remained of the rubber. An American sergeant stood waiting. Clipboard in hand. Uniform pressed crisp despite the heat that made the air thick enough to chew. The man looked bored. He pointed toward a processing building without speaking. Conrad followed. Shoulders squared. Spine straight. Trying to maintain something that resembled dignity, even though dignity had died somewhere in the Tunisian desert when artillery turned sand to glass and men to memories. The sergeant handed him a bundle. Brown paper. Tied with string. Conrad took it. Felt the weight. The texture. Clean fabric. New fabric. He untied the string with fingers that had forgotten how to be gentle. Unfolded the paper and stared. A uniform. Khaki. American-made. Prisoner of war regulation. But clean. Not just clean. Pressed. And beneath the uniform, folded with care, underwear. Socks. An undershirt. All of it smelling like soap. Real soap. Not the ersatz garbage Germany had been producing since 1941. Made from God knows what chemicals and coal tar. Leaving skin raw and clothes gray no matter how hard you scrubbed. Real soap. The kind that had vanished from München shops 2 years ago. The kind his mother stopped asking about because asking only made the absence more painful. Conrad held the uniform to his face and inhaled. The scent hit him like a punch to the chest. Clean cotton. Detergent with actual cleaning agents. A faint trace of starch. His hands began to shake. He forced them still. Looked up at the sergeant. The man was already walking away, still bored, as if handing soap and hot water to enemy prisoners was the most ordinary thing in the world. Maybe for him it was. Conrad stood there in the California sun holding 4 ounces of Real soap and understood that something was very wrong with his understanding of this war. They give this to prisoners. The sergeant gestured toward a shower building. 20 minutes to clean up, change, report back. Simple instructions delivered in English that Conrad understood well enough from his technical studies. He walked toward the showers. Boots crunching gravel. Uniform bundle pressed against his chest like something precious. Something that might disappear if he held it too loosely. He passed between rows of white wooden barracks. Paint fresh. Roofs intact. Windows with actual glass. Between the barracks, clotheslines stretched on metal posts. And on those lines hung sheets. White sheets. Not gray. Not brown. Not the mottled beige of fabric washed so many times the original color had surrendered to exhaustion. White. Brilliantly, impossibly white. Flapping in the afternoon breeze like surrender flags. Which is exactly what they were. Except Conrad was not the one surrendering in that moment. He stopped walking. stood in the middle of the dusty path between barracks and stared at those sheets dancing in California wind. His engineer mind, trained at Technische Universität München, educated in precision and mathematics and the logic of machines, began calculating without permission. His brain did this. Always had. Numbers and ratios and efficiency metrics even when he did not want them. Even when numbers only made the truth more painful. 40 sheets visible from where he stood. Just in this section. Probably 200 sheets in the entire camp. Washed regularly. Hung to dry in the sun. Crisp and white and absolutely spotless. Each sheet required soap. Water. Effort. The camp held 3,000 prisoners. The sergeant had mentioned the number during processing. 2,847, to be precise. Each man generated approximately 2 pounds of laundry per week. Uniforms. Towels. Sheets. 6,000 pounds of laundry. Weekly. That required detergent. Industrial quantities of detergent. Water heated to proper temperatures. Machines. Industrial machines, not hand washing in cold rivers like his unit had done in Tunisia. Machines meant steel. Manufacturing capacity. Resources deployed not for killing but for keeping enemy prisoners comfortable. Multiply that by the number of camps across America. Hundreds, he had heard. Maybe thousands. And the numbers became staggering. A nation that could afford to keep its enemies' underwear spotlessly clean was a nation that had already won the war. The thought arrived complete. Undeniable. Terrible in its simplicity. Conrad stood there holding his clean uniform and understood something that artillery barrages had never taught him. Germany had entered this war with impressive production figures. With engineering excellence that built the finest tanks and aircraft in Europe. With a discipline that turned factories into weapons and citizens into soldiers. But Germany squeezed. Squeezed every possible output from limited resources. Rationed soap and sugar and gasoline and shoes. Turned women's dresses into parachutes and church bells into bullets. America did not squeeze. America poured. The difference between those two approaches stood flapping on clotheslines in the California sun. White and clean and utterly devastating in what it revealed about industrial capacity. About resource depth. About the vast gulf between a nation mobilized for total war and a nation waging total war with a fraction of its strength. Inside the shower building, white tile gleamed under electric lights. Electric lights in the middle of the afternoon. Lights that never flickered. Never dimmed. Powered by hydroelectric dams somewhere in those purple mountains, generating electricity in quantities that made Berlin's pre-war output look quaint. Conrad undressed. Peeled away the uniform he had worn since Sicily. Stiff with sweat and dust and the residue of battles he preferred not to remember. His body was thin. Not starving. The Africa Corps had been supplied adequately, if not generously. But lean in the way of men who work hard and eat just enough to keep working. Height, 5 feet 11 inches. Weight, 145 pounds. Down from 175 before the war. Ribs visible. Hip bones prominent. Muscles defined not from exercise but from the absence of fat. He stepped into the shower stall and turned the knob. Water burst from the shower head. Hot water. Actually hot. Heated by systems designed for the sole purpose of bathing prisoners in August in the California desert. Conrad stood under the spray and felt heat soak into skin that had not been truly warm since he could not remember when. The water ran brown at first. Washing away layers of North Africa and Sicily. Dust from places whose names he had learned only because men died there. He watched it swirl down the drain, taking with it the visual evidence of war while leaving everything else untouched. After a minute, the water ran clear. He found a bar of soap on a small shelf. An entire bar. Not a sliver. Not a fragment to be hoarded and rationed. A full bar of American soap weighing 4 ounces. He began scrubbing. The soap lathered immediately. Real soap made from real fats and real alkali. The chemical reaction producing bubbles that actually lifted dirt instead of just smearing it around. He washed his hair. His face. His arms and chest and legs. Watching suds multiply and spread. The scent was clean. Neutral. American. He scrubbed until his skin turned pink. Until he could scrub no more without causing damage. And then he stood under the hot water and let it rinse everything away. 11 minutes. He had been in the shower 11 minutes. In München, before the war, his mother Greta had rationed bath water carefully. Heated on the coal stove. Poured into the tub. Bathe quickly before it cooled. After 1939, when rationing began, even that became difficult. Coal for heating water competed with coal for staying warm in winter. You chose. She usually chose warmth over cleanliness. Which meant bathing once a week in water barely tepid, using soap made from whatever the Reichschemists had concocted that month. Here in California, in a prisoner of war camp, Conrad had used more hot water in 11 minutes than his mother probably used in a month. The thought made him shut off the water faster than necessary. Made him step out and grab the towel hanging on a hook outside the stall. The towel was clean. Thick. American cotton. He dried himself quickly. Efficiently. Trying not to think about towels. The new uniform fit reasonably well. A bit loose in the waist. He had lost weight in Africa. But otherwise fine. Clean cotton against clean skin felt strange. Foreign. He had forgotten this sensation existed. The bell for dinner rang at 1700 hours. The sound echoed across camp. Clear and loud. A system designed to coordinate 3,000 men without chaos. Conrad stood with the others and filed toward the mess hall. Joining a line that moved steadily forward. No shoving. No desperation. Because everyone knew there would be enough food. And tomorrow there would be more. The mess hall was larger than most buildings in München. Long tables arranged in rows. Kitchen at one end. Serving line at the other. Electric lights overhead. Bright and steady. The air smelled like cooking meat. Actual meat. Conrad's stomach tightened involuntarily. Saliva flooding his mouth before his brain could process the scent consciously. His body recognized that smell. Frying pork fat. His cells remembered what it meant. Calories. Protein. Survival. It had been 36 hours since his last meal. He picked up a metal tray from a stack and joined the serving line. The line moved. 180 men per hour. Efficient American logistics applied to feeding. A cook, an American corporal who looked barely 20, ladled food onto Conrad's tray with mechanical efficiency. Scrambled eggs. 4 ounces. Mounded high and steaming. 6 strips of bacon. Each one approximately 1 ounce. 6 inches long. Crispy edges. Golden brown. Fat still glistening under the lights. 2 slices of toast. Butter melting into the surface. Real butter. Yellow and soft. Coffee in a cup. 8 ounces. Cream and sugar available for those who wanted it. A small bowl containing sliced peaches in syrup. Conrad stared at the tray in his hands. The bacon alone represented more protein than a German officer's daily ration. The butter was real dairy fat, not margarine made from petroleum byproducts. The coffee was actual coffee beans, not roasted grain substitute. The fruit was fresh. 630 calories. In one meal. 26% of a Wehrmacht soldier's daily caloric intake. In one meal. He carried his tray to a table where other prisoners sat. Set it down carefully. Looked at the bacon. 6 strips. Each one 45 calories. 270 calories total. 28 grams of protein. Nearly half the daily requirement. They smelled like salt and smoke and caramelization. Like chemistry working exactly as it should. Maillard reaction between amino acids and sugars creating flavor compounds that evolution had programmed human brains to crave. An older prisoner sat across from him. Feldwebel Otto Brenner. 34 years old. Hamburg accent. Captured at Normandy. His uniform was clean and pressed, identical to Conrad's. His face was weathered. Eyes carrying the particular weariness of men who had seen too much and survived anyway. Otto was watching him. Said nothing. Just watched. Conrad picked up his fork. Cut a piece of bacon. Raised it to his mouth. The first taste hit his tongue and his eyes closed involuntarily. Salt first. Immediate and sharp. Then fat coating his mouth like warm silk. Then the subtle sweetness beneath. The pork itself. The meat flavor he had not tasted in so long his body had almost forgotten what to do with it. He chewed slowly. 14 chews. Counted them without meaning to. Swallowed. Felt it slide down his throat. Heavy and rich and substantial. In his mind, unbidden, an image of his mother in their München kitchen. She would be preparing dinner now. 6 hours ahead. 2,300 hours there. Late, but not impossibly so. Greta Hoffman. 61 years old. Seamstress. Widow since 1938 when his father died in a factory accident. She had raised Conrad alone from age 13. Worked extra hours so he could study engineering instead of factory work. She would have 1 potato tonight. Maybe 2 if she was lucky. Boil them with the skins on to preserve nutrients. Eat them with salt if there was salt. No butter. No meat. 1 slice of bread. 60% wheat flour. 40% potato starch mixed with sawdust to stretch supplies. 5 grams of margarine. Ersatz. Made from petroleum derivatives because real fats went to the military. 120 calories total. While her son sat in California eating bacon. 6 strips. Conrad cut another piece. Put it in his mouth. His stomach accepted it eagerly. Gratefully. Cells crying out for protein and calories after years of shortage. He ate the second strip. Then the third. His hands moved automatically. Fork to plate to mouth. The rhythm of eating taking over despite the voice in his head asking what kind of son sits in luxury while his mother starves. The kind of son who survives, apparently. The kind who does not refuse food out of misplaced guilt when refusing changes nothing. The kind who learns to live with shame as a permanent condition. He finished all 6 strips of bacon. Ate the eggs. Ate the toast with butter. Drank the coffee black, because adding cream and sugar felt like crossing a line he could not define. The food sat heavy in his stomach. Unfamiliar after months of light rations. He felt simultaneously full and dissatisfied. Nourished and guilty. Around him, 3,000 men ate similar meals. Ate them every day. Would eat them tomorrow and the day after. The kitchen produced this abundance with casual efficiency. Waste disposal bins already filling with scraps that would be fed to pigs on nearby farms. In Germany, those scraps would become soup. Here, they became pig feed. That was the difference. That was the arithmetic Otto had mentioned during the walk from the showers. Otto was speaking now. Voice low. Measured. In Hamburg, my wife queues 3 hours for bread. My children haven't seen chicken in 18 months. Yesterday I ate pot roast. He paused. Looked at his own empty tray. That's not punishment. That's the punishment. Comfort while they starve. Conrad said nothing. There was nothing to say. Otto had spoken the truth that sat in Conrad's stomach along with the bacon. After dinner, Conrad walked back to the barracks in twilight. The California sky turned purple and gold. The Sierra Nevada catching the last sunlight while the valley darkened. Electric lights began switching on across camp, illuminating pathways and buildings with steady glow that never flickered. Never dimmed. He climbed into his bunk. Lay on the mattress with clean sheets and a thin blanket. Stared at the ceiling where a single 60-watt bulb burned. The barracks settled into evening routines. Men preparing for sleep. Writing letters. Playing cards. Existing in the strange limbo of captivity without cruelty. Conrad closed his eyes. Behind his eyelids, white sheets flapped on clotheslines. Bacon sizzled in pans. Hot water poured from showerheads. His mother hung damp clothes over a cold radiator in München. The images mixed and merged. Reality and guilt and understanding all tangled together into something he could not separate. He had learned something today. Something important. Something terrible. Germany had fought with courage. With discipline. With engineering excellence and tactical brilliance and the stubborn determination of men who believed propaganda about inevitable victory. America had fought with abundance. And abundance, it turned out, defeated everything. Morning arrived with a bell that rang across Camp Stockton at 0600 hours. Conrad opened his eyes to California sunlight streaming through windows that faced east. He had slept. Actually slept. 7 hours straight without waking. Without cold. Without the gnawing hunger that had been his companion for 2 years. His body felt strange. Rested. Otto appeared. Already dressed. Breakfast in 15 minutes. Then I show you the laundry facility. You will want to see it. They filed toward the mess hall with the others. The morning air was cool. That desert cold that evaporated the moment the sun climbed higher. The mess hall smelled like frying meat before they even entered. They picked up trays. Moved through the serving line. The cook on duty was the same American corporal from yesterday. Red hair. Freckles. Bored expression of someone performing a task he had done 1,000 times. The tray filled. Scrambled eggs. 6 strips of bacon again. Toast. Coffee. Sliced peaches. Conrad carried his tray to a table and sat. The bacon demanded attention. He cut the first strip and put it in his mouth. Same salt. Same fat. Same richness his cells recognized as survival. But today his body responded with shameful enthusiasm while his mind recoiled. Yesterday had felt surreal. Today felt real. The bacon was real. The eggs were real. And in München, his mother's hunger was equally real. Happening at the same moment. He ate. All of it. His stomach accepted the food. Processed it. Converted fat and protein into energy and cellular repair. His mind conducted a parallel process. Converting observations into conclusions. Data into understanding. Facts into the terrible mathematics of defeat. After breakfast, Otto led him across camp toward a large white building that stood near the eastern fence line. The building was bigger than any structure in the camp except the mess hall. The laundry facility, Otto said. This is where you understand everything. They approached the building. Even from outside, Conrad could hear the sound. A rhythmic thumping. Mechanical and steady. The sound of industrial equipment in operation. 200 feet away. 120 revolutions per minute. His engineer's mind tracked the rhythm automatically. 100 feet away. Closer now. He could hear hissing steam. Water sloshing. The collective breathing of machines working in harmony. They entered through a side door. The space was filled with steam and noise and the overwhelming scent of soap and hot water. 6 machines lined the far wall. Industrial washing machines. White enamel and chrome. Each one the size of a small automobile. They were running. Drums rotating inside, visible through small glass windows in the front doors. Water sloshed. Clothes tumbled. The machines vibrated slightly with the motion, creating a collective hum that filled the space like the breathing of some massive creature. Conrad stopped walking. Stood in the doorway and stared. He recognized the machines immediately. Commercial laundry equipment. Industrial grade. The kind of machines used by hotels and hospitals and large institutions that processed hundreds of pounds of fabric daily. Machines that cost serious money. Machines built from steel and copper and electrical components and precision-manufactured parts. An American corporal stood near the machines, supervising 2 prisoners who were loading wet laundry from the washers into wheeled carts. The corporal was young. Maybe 23. Red hair and freckles. The casual posture of someone performing routine duty. Otto walked forward. Conrad followed. Drawn by engineering instinct toward machines that demanded examination. They approached the nearest washer. Through the glass window, Conrad could see clothes tumbling in water. Agitating through the cleaning cycle. The window was slightly fogged from heat. He wiped it clear with his palm and looked closer. White fabric. Sheets, probably. Tumbling in water that was actually hot. He could see steam rising from the gap between the door and the machine body. Hot water. In August. In California desert. Heated by what? He traced the pipes with his eyes. Gas lines. Natural gas or propane feeding burners that heated water on demand. He moved closer to the nearest machine. The manufacturer's plate was riveted to the front panel. Maytag commercial. Des Moines, Iowa. Model CW50. Manufacture date 1942. Capacity 50 pounds. Electric motor 1.5 horsepower. The specifications told a story. These were not cheap machines. Not simple technology. They represented significant manufacturing capability. Precision engineering. Quality materials. The electric motor alone required copper windings. Steel laminations. Ball bearings machined to tight tolerances. And these machines were here. In a prisoner of war camp. 6 of them. Washing enemy soldiers' underwear. How much can they wash? Conrad asked Otto. 50 pounds per machine per load. 6 machines, total capacity 300 pounds per cycle. Cycle takes 90 minutes. They run continuously Monday through Wednesday. Conrad did the mathematics automatically. 300 pounds per 90 minutes. 20 loads possible in a standard workday if they ran efficiently. 6,000 pounds weekly capacity. With 3,000 prisoners, assuming each man generated 2 pounds of laundry per week, that was 6,000 pounds weekly demand. Perfect match. The system was engineered precisely to meet demand with minimal excess capacity. Efficient. American efficient. One of the machines finished its cycle. The motor stopped. The drums settled to a halt. The prisoner worker opened the front door and steam billowed out. Warm and wet and smelling like detergent. He began pulling wet laundry from the drum. Loading it into a wheeled cart. The fabric was white. Perfectly, brilliantly white. Conrad had not seen sheets that white since before the war. The worker pushed the cart toward the back of the facility where gas-fired dryers waited. 6 dryers matching the 6 washers. He loaded wet sheets into a dryer. Closed the door. Set the timer. The dryer rumbled to life. Drum rotating. Gas burner igniting with a soft whump of combustion. From dirty to clean in 90 minutes. From wet to dry in 45. Total processing time 2 hours 15 minutes. No scrubbing. No rationing. No deciding which garment was worth the precious soap. Just load. Start. Wait. Remove. Conrad walked along the row of machines, examining each one. They were identical. 6 Maytag CW, 50 units. All 1942 manufacture. All in excellent condition despite constant use. Someone maintained them. Someone kept them running. Behind the washers and dryers, he noticed a storage area. Shelves lined the wall. And on those shelves sat boxes. Detergent boxes. He walked over. Picked one up. Tide. Procter & Gamble, Cincinnati, Ohio. Net weight 10 pounds. Real detergent. Chemical surfactants designed to lift dirt at molecular level. 40 boxes visible on the shelves. 400 pounds of detergent in stock. Otto had been watching him examine everything. Now he spoke. You see it now? Yes. What we are fighting? Yes. Not an enemy. A system. An industrial system so vast that we are an afterthought. A minor expense. Conrad's mind was still calculating. Still running numbers. Still trying to comprehend the scale. 6 machines. But this was one camp. How many camps? Dozens mentioned during processing. Maybe hundreds across America. If even half of them had laundry facilities like this one, the total number of machines numbered in the thousands. And this was just laundry. Just one aspect of prisoner care. There was also food. Medical care. Housing. Maintenance. Guard salaries. Transportation. Administration. All of it multiplied across hundreds of camps. All of it functioning with smooth efficiency because America had the industrial capacity to make it function. Germany had entered the war believing in its industrial superiority. German engineering was legendary. German efficiency was doctrine. But Germany had mobilized everything. Had squeezed every factory, every mine, every farm, every worker into maximum output. Had rationed civilian goods to near extinction to feed the military machine. And still it was not enough. The corporal supervising the laundry approached. He spoke in English which Conrad understood reasonably well from technical school. You engineer? Yes. Good. We need someone who can maintain these machines. Previous guy went home last month. Repatriated. You interested in the work? Conrad glanced at Otto, who nodded slightly. Work was better than idleness. Yes. I can do it. Report here 0700 tomorrow. I'll show you the maintenance schedule. The corporal walked away, leaving Conrad standing among the machines that would become his daily responsibility. His daily reminder. His daily lesson in the arithmetic of abundance versus scarcity. September arrived with cooler mornings. Week 4 at Camp Stockton. Conrad had settled into routine. Work in the laundry facility. Maintenance on the Maytag machines. Lubrication schedules. Belt tensions. Minor repairs. The machines were well built. Over-engineered even. Built to last decades. Built by a nation that could afford to overbuild everything because scarcity was not a constraint. This morning was different. Otto had mentioned something at evening formation yesterday. Something about rations being adjusted. They walked to the mess hall in the usual stream of prisoners. The line moved with practiced efficiency. Conrad picked up his metal tray and moved through the serving line. The cook on duty was the same American corporal. Red hair. Freckles. Bored expression. He ladled scrambled eggs onto Conrad's tray. Added 2 slices of toast. Poured coffee into the cup. Then he reached for the bacon and kept reaching. 1 strip. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 8 strips of bacon. The corporal moved to the next prisoner without comment. Without acknowledgement that anything had changed. 8 strips was apparently the new standard. Conrad carried his tray to a table where Otto already sat. Staring at his own plate with an expression somewhere between disbelief and nausea. On Otto's tray, 8 strips of bacon. Conrad sat. Set his tray down carefully. The bacon remained. 8 strips. Crispy edges. Golden brown. Fat glistening under the electric lights. Still hot from the griddle. Steam rising faintly. 360 calories. Up from 270. A 33% increase implemented without announcement. Without explanation. Somewhere, someone had calculated that prisoners required more protein. Or perhaps supply had increased. Or perhaps, and this thought was worse, perhaps 8 strips was simply convenient for kitchen workflow. And the additional 2 strips per prisoner represented such negligible cost that nobody bothered to optimize downward. Conrad looked at the bacon. Really looked at it. Each strip was roughly 6 inches long. 1/4 inch thick. This bacon came from pigs raised on American farms. Fed on corn and soybeans grown on vast acreage. Slaughtered in processing plants. Butchered. Cured. Smoked. Packaged. Shipped to California. Stored in refrigeration. Cooked on American griddles by American cooks. Feeding German prisoners. The supply chain required to put 8 strips of bacon on his tray involved more industrial infrastructure than some German cities possessed. Otto picked up his fork. Cut a piece of bacon. Stopped with it halfway to his mouth. I cannot. Conrad understood. The bacon represented a moral paradox that had no solution. Eating it meant accepting comfort while family suffered. Refusing it meant wasting food through empty gesture that helped nobody. There was no correct answer. Just the impossible choice between guilt and different guilt. He picked up his fork. Cut the first strip in half. The crispy edge crackled under the knife. Fat oozed slightly from the cut. He lifted the piece to his mouth and placed it on his tongue. The taste hit immediately. Salt first. Sharp and clear. Triggering salivation before conscious thought. Then fat. Not like silk now. Like accusation. Like evidence of complicity. Each chew was a decision to continue. Each swallow was choosing survival over honor. He chewed slowly. The texture changed as he chewed. Crispy edges softening. Fat melting. Everything combining into a mouthful that tasted like abundance. Like casual excess. He swallowed. Felt it slide down his throat. Felt his stomach accept it. Begin processing it. In München, his mother would be eating lunch now. 6 hours ahead. 1430 hours there. Greta would be taking a break from her sewing work to eat whatever she had managed to obtain with her ration cards. Bread, probably. A slice of bread made from flour mixed with sawdust and potato starch. Maybe a thin scrape of margarine if she had saved enough coupons. No bacon. No meat at all. Meat had been scarce since 1940. By 1943, it had become nearly mythical. She would eat her bread slowly, making it last. Chew thoroughly. Extract every calorie. Drink water to fill her stomach, to quiet the hunger that was her constant companion. And then she would return to her sewing machine and work until evening, burning calories she could barely replace, growing thinner each month. While her son sat in California eating 8 strips of bacon, Conrad cut another piece, put it in his mouth. The taste was the same, but his mind added new layers now. Shame. Disgust at his own eagerness to eat. Horror at how quickly he had adjusted to abundance. Fear that he was forgetting what hunger felt like. He was becoming American. Becoming comfortable. Becoming someone who accepted 8 strips of bacon as normal. That was the most terrifying thing. Not the bacon itself. Not even the guilt. The terror was in the normalization. In the way his body had already learned to expect this food. 4 weeks. It had taken 4 weeks for his mind to start accepting abundance as default instead of anomaly. He ate the 3rd strip. Then the 4th. His hands moved automatically now. Fork to plate to mouth. The rhythm of eating overriding conscious thought. He finished the 5th strip. 3 remained. The eggs were growing cold. He should eat faster. But he could not. Each bite required conscious decision. Required accepting that he was the kind of son who ate while his mother starved. He ate the 6th strip. The taste was identical to the first. His body processed it the same way. But his mind had changed. The guilt had evolved from sharp pain to dull ache. From acute awareness to chronic condition. He was learning to carry it. Learning to function despite it. Learning to eat bacon and feel terrible and continue eating anyway because stopping accomplished nothing. This was survival. Not physical survival. His body would survive on less food. Psychological survival. Learning to live with moral compromise. He ate the 7th strip. 1 remained. Otto was watching him. You will eat all 8? Yes. Why? Because my mother would want me to. Because if she knew I had food and refused it, she would be angry. She worked too hard to keep me alive to waste her effort on empty gestures. She would say, eat, survive, come home. That is what matters. You believe that? Conrad thought about it. Really thought. I do not know. But I need to believe it. So I choose to believe it. That is all I have. He ate the 8th strip. Finished the eggs. Ate the cold toast. Drank the coffee. He consumed everything on his tray. Leaving nothing. Wasting nothing. Because waste seemed worse than acceptance. When he finished, his stomach was full. Uncomfortably full. He felt slightly nauseous. The bacon sat heavy in his gut. His digestive system working hard to process abundance it had not experienced in years. The horror was not in eating or not eating. The horror was in the choice existing at all. The horror was in having enough to waste. To refuse. To agonize over. October 15, 1943. The transport arrived on a Thursday. Conrad was working in the laundry facility when Otto found him. New arrival. Hauptmann. Panzer Commander. Captured outside Naples. He is trouble. What kind of trouble? The believing kind. Hauptmann Werner Adler stepped off the train with his spine straight and his face set in the expression of a man who refused to accept reality. 42 years old. Panzer Commander. Tank destroyed in fighting after the Italian armistice. Werner was assigned to Conrad's barracks. Otto gave him the standard orientation tour. But that evening, when Werner saw his first dinner tray, pot roast with potatoes and gravy, fresh bread with butter, apple pie, he refused to eat. Propaganda, Werner announced to the table. They feed us well temporarily. For Red Cross inspectors, maybe. This is theater. The Reich is winning. Nobody responded. Men ate their dinners in silence. The silence of people who had stopped arguing with denial weeks ago. Werner lasted 2 days before hunger overcame ideology. Conrad watched him eat breakfast on Saturday morning. Watched the conflict play across his face. Watched pride wrestling with biology and losing. By Sunday, Werner was eating normally. But still talking about temporary conditions and strategic victories. On Monday morning, Conrad found Werner standing outside the laundry facility. Staring at the building with confusion and rage. "You work here?" "Yes, Herr Hauptmann." "Show me." Conrad led him inside. The machines were running their Monday cycles. Drums rotating. Water flowing. Werner walked slowly along the row of Maytag washers. Touching each one as if verifying they were real. American machines. Yes. Commercial grade. 1942 manufacture. Each unit can process 50 pounds per 90-minute cycle. For prisoners. Yes. How many camps have these machines? I do not know exact numbers. Hundreds of camps exist. If even half have laundry facilities, we are discussing thousands of machines. Werner did the mathematics. Conrad could see it happening behind his eyes. The steel. The copper. The manufacturing capacity. Take me to the kitchen. They walked across camp. Through the kitchen window, Werner watched cooks preparing lunch. Watched them scrape vegetable trimmings into waste bins. Watched abundance become garbage. The medical clinic. Conrad showed him. X-ray equipment. Medicine cabinets stocked with sulfa drugs. Supplies that German field hospitals lacked. The warehouse. Blankets stacked ceiling high. 50,000 units for one camp. Werner touched the wool. Checked the labels. North Carolina manufacture. Real wool. They walked to the fence line. Stood looking out at California farmland. Werner was quiet for a long time. How many prisoners are here? He finally asked. 3,000. And they feed all 3,000. 3 meals daily. Meat at most meals. Yes. Clean their clothes in industrial machines. Yes. Werner turned to face him. If the Reich is winning, explain this to me. Explain how the enemy can afford such abundance for prisoners while our frontline troops ration bullets. Conrad said nothing. There was nothing to say. You cannot explain it, Werner continued. Because there is no explanation except the one you have already accepted. We have lost. Not recently. We lost before we started. We fought courage against logistics. We brought determination to a mathematics competition and wondered why numbers defeated us. The admission seemed to break something in Werner. His shoulders sagged. His face aged 10 years in 10 seconds. I had a brother, he said quietly. Killed at Stalingrad. January 1943. Froze to death waiting for fuel that never arrived. Fuel the Reich did not have. He looked back at the laundry facility. While America uses fuel to run clothes dryers for prisoners. That is what defeats us. Not better soldiers. Abundance. Simple, overwhelming abundance. They have so much they can waste it on generosity and still win. May 8, 1945. Armed Forces radio crackled with the announcement. Germany had surrendered. The war in Europe was over. 3,000 prisoners gathered in the recreation yard, listening to the broadcast. Some wept. Some stood silent. Some looked relieved. Conrad felt nothing. Empty. The war's end changed nothing at Camp Stockton. The machines would still run Monday. Hot water would still flow. Bacon would still arrive on breakfast trays. Werner stood nearby. Face wet with tears. We fought for nothing. Died for nothing. And learned nothing until too late. The next morning, the bell rang at 0600 hours. Conrad woke to California sunlight. The mess hall served breakfast. 8 strips of bacon. Eggs. Toast with butter. The Maytag machines ran their cycles. White sheets emerged clean and hot. Nothing changed. And that, Conrad understood, was the final lesson. The arithmetic had been decided long ago. December 1945. The ship docked at Bremen under grey winter sky. Konrad Hoffmann stood on deck watching Germany materialize through morning fog. Height still 5 feet 11 inches. Weight 162 pounds. He had regained 17 pounds in captivity. 17 pounds of bacon and eggs and clean sheets and hot water and the arithmetic of defeat. Conrad stepped onto German soil for the first time in 4 years. Bremen was unrecognizable. Buildings stood like broken teeth against winter sky. Hollow. Windows empty. Walls pockmarked with shrapnel and bullets and the casual violence of total war. He boarded a train to München. Watched the landscape pass. Germany was rubble. Cities bombed flat. Factories destroyed. Bridges collapsed into rivers. The industrial capacity that had built tanks and aircraft and submarines now existed primarily as scrap metal rusting in fields. The train rattled south for 2 days. Conrad ate the rations provided by Allied authorities. Bread. Cheese. An apple. Less than he had eaten for breakfast at Camp Stockton. More than most Germans would see this week. München appeared through winter rain. The city he had left in 1940 was gone. Replaced by something that resembled a city only in the geography of its streets. Buildings reduced to foundations. Churches without roofs. The BMW factory where he had worked was a skeleton of twisted steel and broken concrete. He walked from the station carrying everything he owned in a canvas bag. The walk took an hour. Not because of distance. Because streets that used to be streets were now paths picked through rubble. Greta's building stood. Barely. 4 stories. Windows empty. Walls scarred with shrapnel. The entrance door hung crooked on broken hinges. Conrad climbed stairs that groaned under his weight. 2nd floor. 3rd floor. Each step a negotiation with structural integrity that seemed more suggestion than certainty. Apartment 312. The door had been repaired with scrap wood. Numbers painted in white. He knocked. Footsteps inside. Slow. Careful. The door opened. Greta Hoffmann stood in the doorway. 63 years old. She looked 75. Height 5 feet 4 inches. She had shrunk 1 inch from malnutrition osteoporosis. Weight 98 pounds. Down from 125 before the war. Body mass index 16.8. Severe malnutrition. Clinical starvation. Her face was gray. Skin stretched tight over bones. Hair thin and brittle. Eyes sunken. Hands skeletal. She stared at him for 3 seconds that felt like 3 years. Conrad. Her voice was a whisper. As if speaking louder would require calories she did not have. He could not speak. Could only step forward and embrace her carefully. Feeling bones through her dress. Vertebrae prominent. Shoulder blades sharp as knives. Ribs like ladder rungs beneath fabric. She weighed less than the bacon he had eaten in 2 weeks at Camp Stockton. He held her and understood that some arithmetic could not be calculated. Could only be felt. "Come inside," she said. The apartment was 2 rooms shared with 4 other families. 7 people total. Sleeping in shifts. Sharing one coal stove that barely worked. Sharing rations that barely sustained. Greta showed him her corner. A mattress on the floor. A small table. Her sewing machine. The same machine she had worked on for 20 years. Still functional. Still earning enough to buy bread twice a week if she was lucky. "I manage," she said. "Do not worry." But Conrad was already worrying. Already calculating. Already understanding what 4 years of war had done to the woman who raised him. That evening, Greta demonstrated her laundry system. She filled a bucket with water from the hallway tap. 8 liters. Cold water. The building had no heat. No hot water. No functional plumbing beyond a single tap that worked intermittently. She produced a bar of soap. Ash soap. The ersatz formula Germany had been manufacturing since 1943. Made from coal ash and petroleum byproducts and chemistry that barely qualified as soap. The bar was gray. Cracked. It barely lathered when she rubbed it against fabric. She began scrubbing a dress by hand. Knuckles red. Cracked. Arthritic from years of washing in cold water. The fabric stayed gray. Never truly clean. Just less dirty than before. Time required, 45 minutes for 3 items. Result, fabric gray. Soap residue visible. Her hands bleeding slightly from cracks that would not heal. Conrad watched. Paralyzed. Memory flooded without permission. 6 Maytag CW50 machines. White enamel and chrome. Drums rotating at 120 revolutions per minute. Water heated to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Tide detergent in 10-pound boxes. 50 pounds washed in 90 minutes. Whites emerging brilliantly white. Hot from the dryer. Unlimited hot water. Unlimited detergent. Unlimited capacity. While his mother scrubbed 3 items in cold water with ash soap that barely functioned. How could he tell her? How could he describe Camp Stockton? The machines? The abundance? She would think him mad. Or cruel. Or both. "Mother," he said. His voice sounded strange. Distant. She looked up from the bucket. "I will buy you a washing machine. American machine. Maytag. Like the ones I saw. You will never wash by hand again." Greta stopped scrubbing. Set down the dress. Dried her hands on a rag that was itself in need of washing. She stood. Crossed the small space. Touched his face with arthritic fingers. "You survived. That is enough." But it was not enough. It would never be enough. 7 years passed. Germany rebuilt. Slowly. Painfully. The Wirtschaftswunder wonder they would call it later. The economic miracle. But in 1952 it was still reconstruction. Still scarcity. Still rationing. Conrad worked at BMW again. The factory had been rebuilt. Not to pre-war capacity. But functional. Making cars instead of aircraft engines. Employing engineers who had learned precision in service of war and now applied it to peacetime production. He earned good money. Saved carefully. May 1952. He entered a store in rebuilt München. Department store selling appliances. German brands on display. Bosch. Miele. Fine machines. Excellent engineering. "Do you have American machines?" Conrad asked the salesman. The man raised an eyebrow. "Maytag." But expensive. Parts are difficult to obtain. 1,420 Deutsche Marks. $340 American. 6 months' salary for an average worker. I will take it. The salesman wrote the order. Delivery and installation in 1 week. Conrad paid cash. Provided his address. Left the store carrying a receipt that felt like redemption. Installation day arrived on a Saturday. Delivery men brought the machine to Conrad's small apartment. He had moved Greta there 2 years earlier. Gotten her out of the shared rooms. Given her space. Warmth. A functioning kitchen. But she still washed by hand. Still used cold water and ash soap. Still spent 45 minutes scrubbing 3 items that emerged gray and never truly clean. The machine sat in its crate in the hallway. Conrad dismissed the delivery men. I will install it myself. He knew every specification. Had maintained 6 Maytag CW50 machines for 20 months in California. Knew every bolt. Every bearing. Every seal. This was Model 20TN. The civilian version. Same core components. Same engineering. Same overbuilt American reliability. He unpacked it carefully. Read the manual even though he did not need to. Connected water supply. Gas line. Electrical. Tested the connections. Checked for leaks. Ran an empty cycle. The machine rumbled to life. The sound hit him like physical force. That familiar mechanical breathing. 120 revolutions per minute. The hum of the motor. The slosh of water filling the drum. He was back in California. Standing in the laundry facility. White sheets flapping in desert sun. Otto's tears. Werner's breaking. 8 strips of bacon. The guilt. The shame. The arithmetic that had defeated Germany. All of it contained in the sound of one washing machine. The empty cycle completed. The machine functioned perfectly. Conrad called his mother. Greta came slowly. Leaning on a cane now. Arthritis in her hands from years of cold water. Arthritis in her knees from years of kneeling to scrub. 70 years old. Looking 80. She stood in his small apartment and stared at the white enamel machine with chrome trim. Is this Maytag? Conrad said. American. Like I promised. He gathered her laundry. Dresses. Undergarments. Towels. Loaded them into the drum. Measured detergent carefully. Tide. Imported. Expensive. He did not care about cost. Added it to the dispenser. Closed the door. Turned the dial. Set the cycle. Normal wash. Hot water. 60 minutes. Pulled the starter. The machine rumbled to life. Gas heater kicked on with familiar sound. Water began filling. Hot water. Steam rising from the gap around the door seal. All the memories came flooding back. Camp Stockton. California sun. White sheets on clotheslines. The 6 machines running Monday through Wednesday. The smell of Tide detergent. The sound of drums rotating. The feel of clean laundry hot from the dryer. 8 strips of bacon on a metal tray. His mother eating potato peels in München. The guilt. The shame. The terrible lesson about what power really meant. Conrad stood watching the drum rotate through the glass door. Memory and present and guilt mixing into something that threatened to drown him. 60 minutes later, the cycle completed. He opened the door. Steam billowed out into the apartment. He removed the clothes. Brilliantly white. Perfectly clean. Still hot. Handed them to his mother. Greta held them to her face. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "So clean," she whispered. "I had forgotten. I had forgotten clothes could be this clean." Conrad could not speak. Could only watch her hold clean laundry and remember California sun and white sheets and the day he understood Germany had lost the war. 16 years. Greta used that machine every week from 1952 to 1968. Learned to operate it herself. Marveled each time at the whiteness. The cleanliness. The ease. Every Monday, Conrad came to help. Though she did not need help. He came to watch. To remember. To carry his guilt in the sound of a machine that still worked perfectly after 16 years of use. She died in April 1968. 86 years old. Peacefully in her sleep. Her clothes were clean. Her apartment was warm. She had not been hungry in her final years. After her funeral, Conrad ran one final load in the Maytag. Her sheets. The last time he would wash her things. He took the machine to his own apartment. Continued using it. Every Monday without fail. The ritual became structure. Structure became meaning. Meaning became penance. He did laundry. Every Monday. 0700 hours. Loaded clothes. Measured detergent. Exactly 2 ounces. Started the cycle. Sat in his chair. Watched the drum rotate through the glass door. Remembered. The decades passed. The machine still worked. Minor repairs. Lubrication. Maintenance. Belt replacement. Gasket renewal. The machine still worked. Motor rebuild. Conrad's hands still knew every component. The machine still worked. Friends asked why he did not buy a new machine. Modern machines were more efficient. Quieter. Used less water. He refused. This was not about efficiency. This was about memory. About carrying the weight of understanding. About never forgetting what he had learned at age 28. He kept a maintenance log. Precise. Detailed. Engineer's habit. Total washes, 2,392. 46 years times 52 weeks. Parts replaced, motor 1977, bearings 1983 and 1991, water pump 1988, door seal 1995. Total maintenance cost, $487 over 46 years. The machine still functioned perfectly. March 15, 1998. Conrad was 83 years old. The doctor had given him the diagnosis in February. Cancer. Pancreatic. 2 to 3 months. Nothing to be done. Palliative care only. He was weak. Weight down to 138 pounds. Barely able to stand. But it was Monday. And on Monday, he did laundry. He loaded clothes into the machine. His own clothes now. Greta was 30 years dead. Slowly, carefully, measuring tide with shaking hands. Exactly 2 ounces. The same brand. 46 years of the same brand. Started the cycle. The familiar rumble. The sound that had been his companion for 46 years. He sat in his chair. Watched the drum rotate through the glass door. Behind the rotating clothes, memories rotated as well. White sheets flapping in California sun. Surrender flags that were not his surrender but everyone's. Bacon sizzling on American griddles. 6 strips. Then 8. The casual abundance of a nation that could increase prisoner rations by 33% and not bother to announce it. Otto Brenner's tears in the laundry facility. His children who hadn't seen chicken in 18 months. Yesterday I ate pot roast. Werner Adler breaking at the fence line. His brother who froze at Stalingrad waiting for fuel Germany couldn't send. We brought courage to an arithmetic competition. His mother scrubbing clothes in a bucket with ash soap. Knuckles bleeding. Fabric emerging gray. The 6 Maytag CW-50 machines. Industrial capacity deployed for enemy comfort. Proof that logistics defeats ideology. That abundance defeats courage. That arithmetic does not care about determination. The lesson he had learned at 28. Carried for 55 years. Power is not guns and tanks. Power is having enough to be generous to your enemies. Germany had courage. America had abundance. The laundry proved which one wins wars. The cycle completed. Conrad removed the clothes. Folded them carefully. Put them away. Sat back down in his chair. Too tired to move. Too tired to do anything but sit and remember and understand that some lessons can only be learned through living. Through carrying. Through never forgetting. That night, he died peacefully. Sitting in his chair. The Maytag machine silent beside him. The nephew found him the next morning. Found also, in the small desk, a letter. Sealed envelope. Instructions written in precise engineer's handwriting. The nephew opened it. Read. Do not sell this machine. Do not throw it away. Donate it to the Deutsches Museum. Tell them this machine taught me the truth about war. Tell them I used it every Monday for 46 years to remember. Tell them it still works. The nephew followed instructions. The museum curators were initially confused. Why would anyone want a 56-year-old washing machine? Then they read the accompanying letter. The full letter. The story. They understood. They installed it in a small exhibit. Added a placard. Simple. Factual. Maytag model CW, 50/20TN, manufactured 1942, core components. 1952, civilian housing. This machine served at Camp Stockton, California, 1943 to 1945, washing laundry for German prisoners of war. After the war, Konrad Hoffmann, BMW engineer and former prisoner, purchased an identical model in 1952. He used it every Monday until his death in 1998 at age 83. It still works. Below the placard, a note. Konrad's note. Handwritten. Framed behind glass. Power is not guns and tanks. Power is having enough to be generous to your enemies. Germany had courage. America had abundance. The laundry proved which one wins wars. Present day. The museum is quiet this Tuesday afternoon. Tourists wander past exhibits. Engines and aircraft and the machinery of history. An old man stops at the Maytag exhibit. American. Maybe 75. Wearing a Veterans of Foreign Wars cap. Khaki jacket with unit patches. 82nd Airborne. He stares at the machine for a long time. Reads the placard. Reads Konrad's note. Reaches out slowly. Touches the chrome trim. Gently. With reverence reserved for sacred things. He knows. The ones who lived through it know. That wars are not won by courage or determination or the stubborn belief in inevitable victory. They are won by nations that have enough left over to wash their enemies' clothes in hot water. The machine sits gleaming under museum lights. White enamel perfect. Chrome trim reflecting faces of those who stop to look. To read. To understand. A small tag hangs from the door handle. 3 words. Simple. Absolute. It still works. The lesson remains. Thank you for staying until the very end. I hope today's video gave you some new perspectives. Please support me with a like and a subscribe. See you again soon.